You know someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. Maybe you are someone like this. One day they're present, the next gone. No argument, no explanation, just silence like a door closing from the inside, and the people left outside wonder, what did I do? But that's rarely the right question. The right question is quieter. It sounds like, what did they learn about closeness that made disappearing feel safer than staying? That's what we're going to sit with today, not to excuse it, not to romanticize it, but to understand it from the inside. The internal struggle. There's a specific kind of person who craves connection and fears it with equal force. They want to be known, and they are terrified of what being known might cost them. This isn't indifference, it's not coldness. It's a nervous system that learned early that people are unpredictable, that love arrives and then withdraws, that the closer you get, the more it hurts when it ends. So the mind builds a solution. Leave before you're left. It's logical, it's protective, and it is quietly exhausting. The deep dive psychologists call this dismissive avoidant attachment. It forms in childhood, usually in environments where emotional needs went unmet, not necessarily abusive environments, sometimes just distant ones. A parent who was present physically but unreachable emotionally. A home where feelings were treated like inconveniences. The child adapts. They learn to self-soothe. They learn to need less. They learn that the safest bet is themselves, and they carry this forward into friendships, into love, into every relationship that gets too close and triggers the old alarm. Neuroscience gives us a clue here. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, doesn't distinguish between a lion in the grass and a partner asking for vulnerability. If closeness was once dangerous, the brain files it under danger. And when danger approaches, the system does what it was built to do. It withdraws, it detaches, it goes quiet. The reframe. Here's what most people get wrong. They call it selfish, they call it cold, they call it emotional immaturity. And sometimes, yes, there's work to be done. But more often, cutting everyone off is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of survival, using outdated tools. The nervous system learned a strategy that once kept a child safe. It hasn't yet learned that the war is over, that not every person who gets close will abandon or consume them, that staying, despite the fear, is something they are allowed to choose. The psychological mechanism. There's a concept in psychology called emotional flooding. When overwhelm hits, when a relationship demands more than the system feels it can hold, the nervous system doesn't pause to evaluate. It acts, and for the avoidant person, action looks like retreat. John Gottman's research found that when heart rate climbs past a certain threshold, roughly 100 beats per minute, the prefrontal cortex, where nuanced thinking lives, begins to go offline. What remains is the older brain, the one that knows how to run. So when someone with this pattern disappears, they are not thinking clearly. They are surviving. The tragedy is that the very thing they're running from, connection, is the thing that could eventually regulate them. But you can't receive something you've learned to avoid. The practical framework. If you recognize yourself here, or someone you love, this is not a map to fix anyone. It's a map toward understanding. Asterisk step 1. Name the pattern, not the person. The behavior is avoidance. The person is not broken. These are different things. When you conflate them, when you say, I am someone who runs, you build identity around a wound. Say instead, I have a pattern of withdrawing when closeness feels threatening. That leaves room for something to change. Asked. Step 2. Learn your threshold. Ask before you disappear. There is always a signal, a tension in the chest, a desire to cancel plans, a sudden irrational irritation at the person you cared about yesterday. That signal is data. It says something here feels like too much. You don't have to act on it immediately. You are allowed to pause, to notice, and to ask, Is this person actually threatening me, or does this just feel familiar? Asterisk step 3. Practice micro stays. You don't begin by overhauling connection. You begin by staying 5 minutes longer than the fear wants you to, by sending the message when the impulse says don't, by saying I need space instead of disappearing, because one is communication and one is abandonment dressed as self-protection. Small acts of staying rewire the association. They show the nervous system that closeness does not always end in loss. Asterisk step 4. Find a co-regulator. Asterisk. This is where therapy becomes less optional, not because something is wrong with you, but because the nervous system learns through relationship. You cannot think your way out of an attachment wound. You can only experience your way through it with someone safe enough to practice with. A good therapist, a patient friend, a partner who understands and does not take the retreat personally. Step 5. Grieve the strategy. At some point you have to acknowledge what the avoidance cost you, the friendships that faded, the love you let go because staying felt impossible. Not to punish yourself, but because grief is how we metabolize the past instead of repeating it. You built the walls for good reason, and you are allowed to take them down slowly, deliberately, on your own terms. The integration model psychologist Dan Siegel describes mental health as integration, the capacity to hold separateness and connection at the same time, not enmeshment, not isolation, but the ability to be fully yourself inside a relationship, to stay present without losing yourself, to leave when you need space without burning the bridge. This is the work of the person who learned to cut everyone off, not to stop needing space, but to let space coexist with staying. To learn that a closed door doesn't have to mean a permanent goodbye. You are not difficult. You are someone who learned to protect yourself with the only tools you had. And now, if you're here, listening to this, something in you is asking whether there are better tools. There are. They don't arrive all at once. They come quietly, through small choices, small stays, small moments where you let someone in just a little further than the fear wanted you to. That is enough. That is, in fact, how it all begins.